Good afternoon and welcome to our celebration of service on this Halloween day. I'm Ron Barnes and it's an honor to be your president. Thank you for those of you who are wearing costumes, and Teachers Warehouse, thank you for those who are not. I do have a thought for the day, and it says, if we have the attitude that it's going to be a great day, it usually is. That's something to think about. We have a wonderful reflection today, and we do have a jam-packed program, so moving right along, Tim Jessen.
Thank you very much. And on Halloween, I'm glad that I had this costume, which I purchased at a riverboat on the Nile. Some of you know about our unexpected journey. We were headed on October the 6th to overnight to Paris and then to Cairo, and then 4 days later to Tel Aviv. While we were flying across the ocean, the war broke out, and so we ended up with 2 weeks in Egypt instead of just 4 days. And the days there were wonderful and exciting. And though everybody in the USA kept saying, come back home, we were having such a good time that we decided to stay. And the travel group Faith Journeys got us back about the same time we would have gotten back flying from Tel Aviv. But these are very difficult days in the world, and I wanted to share something from our experience. Because we didn't go on to Israel, we spent additional time in Egypt, and I would encourage any of you that can go, that it's a wonderful tourist spot, and the temperatures have cooled. And so we got to fly from Cairo to Aswan, see the Aswan Dam, and then go down the Nile River to Luxor and see many beautiful things there. But while we were in Aswan, we visited an island in the middle of Lake Nasser, which was formed by the Great Dam. And a number of people from the Nubian tribe or group had to move out when the dam was finished. And so they're on an island, and it's a beautiful place to go. And our tour group went there, and I just realized I left the carved camel, which I was going to show you, in the car. But there was a craftsman there, and he was there with his children and the other members of the group. We're talking with him and going to another part of the house to see things. And I just asked him, since I teach religion, what is the religion of the Nubians? And this is the story that he told me. He said, when the Hebrews were there, we adopted the tenets of the Jewish faith. We believed in God, Yahweh, Elohim, and that was content for us. And then several centuries later, when Jesus came, we adopted Jesus as the coming Messiah, and we adopted the tenets and principles of Christianity. Well, then several centuries later, maybe 600 years, Muhammad appeared on the scene, and he was a prophet and of God. And so we accepted Muhammad as part of our religious practice. But he said, there's some parts of Christianity we still have. And he had a little 2-year-old daughter that was running around. She was a toddler. And he said, now, when she was born, we took her down to the Nile River, and we washed her, and we cleansed her, and we had prayers over her. And a lot of you from those churches will recognize this is very similar to the sacrament or the ordinance of infant baptism. And so the Nubians, and I checked this on Wikipedia, have combined the teachings of Christianity with those of Islam. And so they put those two together. And as I thought about the elements of the war that I see 24/7 now in the States, we saw it only on BBC and occasionally CNN. I thought, isn't it too bad that we can't do that in the world today? Instead of Jews firing at Muslims and Muslims firing at Jews? Why can we not combine the best of the great religions of the world, which have similar principles? Love your neighbor. Do love, not hate. Welcome the stranger, and so many other things that are common. Often in our induction ceremony, we'll say that, religion is, Rotary is not a religious organization, but has religious principles. And that's what I'm talking about today. If you have no religion, or if you have one of the religions I've mentioned or some other religion, take the best from that religion. Take the best from the religions of the world and seek peace and seek brotherhood and sisterhood, seek justice. And that is what the world needs today. So my Nubian brother in the middle of the sea was able to preach a lesson that I think is suitable for us all. Let us take the best from all the religious practices and let us practice love, not hate, in this season. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Now to introduce our guest, Hank Walter.
In the Islamic tradition of welcoming guests and neighbors, we'd like to welcome those of you who are guests. And when I read your name, please stand. Annie Hawk from Brown County Rotary. Bonnie Baker, who's a guest of Liz Feidel. Caroline Clay, a guest of Andrea Murray. Sterling Daniel from Rotaract. And Elma Jessen, a guest of Tim. Sally, do we have any guests online?
Hey, everybody. We have actually 16 Rotarians today out here in Zoom land and no guests.
Thanks, Ellie. And by the way, we have no birthdays this week, but we have several anniversaries. Sarah Cochran, 1 year. Erica Kovacs, 1 year. Dick McCagg, 38 years. Yeah, right. And Lynn Schwartzberg, 16 years. And I do want to shout out a great thanks to Joy, who's here, and Lauren Snyder for the work that they did for a very successful RILA this year. I was hoping I get a picture up that was sent that we had, but it was a great experience for the young kids. And thank you, Joy, for your efforts. And thanks, Lauren. Also, I will be posting this and sending it to you. We got a postcard in the mail yesterday from Megan Gerhart. She has arrived and she's talking about her roommates. She's already been to a Rotary meeting, but I will send this to you this afternoon. Also, one other note on a very sad note. If you remember Bill Swenson, who was here a month and a half ago or so, 101 years old, he passed away early this month, and just wanted to share that with you. The other thing is, I want to remind you that Friday night is one of the big showcases for Bloomington Rotary, and that's our toast at the Convention Center. And again, we're going to be honoring Judge Stephen Galvin. Now, I'd like to ask Steve Moberly to come forward and talk to you about our annual tradition of ringing the bell for the Salvation Army.
As our president just stated, this club has had a long history of ringing the bells for the Salvation Army here in Bloomington, and that time is near. We will be ringing at the big Kroger East in the 4 Saturdays in December. December 2nd, 9th, 16th, and 23rd. We will have 2 Rotarians from our club ringing per shift. And the shifts will be each Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., 11 a.m. to 12 noon, 12 noon to 1 p.m., and 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. We hope that you will sign up. So far. The Sign Up Genius sign up sheet went live yesterday. And I want to thank Glenda Murray for putting that together, and for our club assistant for getting it up and running. So far, 9 people have already signed up. The first person to sign up yesterday morning was Abdullah, our member. And not only did he sign up for 1 shift, but he signed up for 2 shifts. But we do hope that you'll consider signing up and participate. It will help children in our community to receive gifts at Christmas, warm clothing, food, and a good time. So please consider signing up. It is Sign Up Genius is online now, and you can easily do it. And one click will make it happen, and you'll have a fellow Rotarian ringing with you. And you'll be inside in the warm north area of the sign up or cart lobby where people can come in, and there'll be a lot of traffic. So please consider signing up and participating this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve has done this for many years, and I thank you. It's really a great service that we provide to our community. I do want to make a correction. The Rotary Toast is at Ivy Tech. I don't want anybody going to the convention center looking for it. And I just was corrected on it, and thank you, because I was going to the convention center. So thank you for that. I'd like to also introduce Elizabeth Thompson, who's coming back as a new member. She's on Zoom. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I'd like to also show a clip that we were supposed to show last week on Purple Pinky Day. It's a brief movie about Polio Plus and what we've done in Rotary. I think we can all pat ourselves on the back as Rotarians for what we've done for polio. I recall as a youth, one summer, my mom wouldn't let me go to the swimming pool because we had kids coming down with polio at that time in our neighborhood. Very scary thing for children and parents at that time. And thanks to Rotary. More time will be spent on this on our meeting on the 14th. We'll also have a presentation from the RI Foundation and our local foundation. And there'll be a short film that also brings out more about Polio Plus. At this point, I'd like to ask Ruth Boschkoff to come forward and introduce our program. Ruth?
over here, okay? I'm not used to doing this. I'm so pleased to be able to be here and introduce my dear friend, Debbie Ponella. Debbie and I, oops. This one? This one?
Right here. Right here.
Oh, okay. All right. To repeat, I'm so glad to be here and to introduce my wonderful friend, Debbie Ponella. We have known each other for, 20 years? About 20 years. Debbie and I have the same interests. We are interested in children and we are interested in creativity. And that has caused us to plan programs for children. It was sort of inevitable that we would do this first program that we did together, Kids Compose, because we're both interested in kids and we're both interested in composition for kids. The program is called Kids Compose, and it's a great program because it also includes the public school teachers and the university and many other facets. The two of us planned that because we were interested in creativity and we were interested in bringing creativity to the classroom. And the nice thing was that all the schools in the district implemented our program and that it continues to this day. And as a matter of fact, Debbie and I are getting together in, I don't know, when I can pry her away from something. She's a very busy person. But we will be going through about, I don't know, what do you think, Debbie? Hundreds of compositions by elementary school children. And then we will go back and forth about which one is good and which one isn't, and which ones are the best ones. And we will winnow it all down to two, I think.
We'll send them on to the composition department.
Yes. The other nice thing about it is that we involve the composition department. So the composition department takes the two melodies and they make a real grown-up composition, which will be done on the MAC stage in front of, I don't know how many third graders, but it seemed like 1,000 at the time. So I want you all to enjoy talking and listening now to one of my very, very best friends, Debbie Ponella.
So with that setup, I am not here alone today. I am here with my father, Dr. Harold Popp. And I'll go ahead, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Harold Popp. Oh, I have to use the mic.
It's on.
It's on, okay. I'm Harold Popp. I taught music for 56 years at mainly 6 different universities. Got my first master's here at IU in 1960. And the creativity has always been a very, very important part, trying to help students understand themselves.
Oh, okay. And yes, I am a creativity researcher, and I'm actually back in school now, getting my doctorate at the School of Education. So we'll get this started. There we go. All right, so our presentation today is Inside Out. Maybe. Inside Out creativity. And so what do we mean by inside out creativity? Well, it might seem like creativity, looking from different perspectives and angles, and definitely that's part of creativity. However, what we're talking about specifically with inside creativity today is how we individually uniquely connect to the creativity inside of us, and then the various ways in which we express that creativity. Versus outside creativity, which is what happens once you've tapped into that inside creativity and you share it and connect. So inside creativity, we'll start there, but first I just want to take a step back and ask you, what do you think of when I say creativity? How do you define creativity? Our theory is that there are probably as many definitions as there are individuals. And as a creativity researcher, I'm really fascinated by how people define creativity. It's like we take that word and, as we turn it around and look at it different ways, it's like it catches the light different every single time you look at it. And this is a cornerstone for my research. And I developed a podcast called Defining Creativity, where I discuss this very thing. So how is creativity defined? How does it apply and manifest itself in different people's lives? And how does their relationship with creativity inform that application and manifestation? So I just want to look at two quick definitions. There were some slides at the beginning. I hope you got to see some of those quotes about it. But the first one is from Steve Jobs. When he was interviewed for Wired in 1996, he said, "Creativity is just connecting things. When you ask creative people how they did something, they feel a little guilty because they didn't really do it. They just saw something. It seemed obvious to them after a while. That's because they were able to connect experiences they've had and synthesize new things. And the reason they were able to do that was that they've had more experiences or they've thought more about their experiences than other people." And then the other one I want to look at here is from Tatiana Kolovu. I don't know if any of you know her. She's faculty over at the Kelley School of Business. She also talked about experiences and creativity being related to those experiences. And she points out that you have to not be too distracted in order to tap into it. But once you know it, it's a superpower. And truly, the diversity of creative expression and processes are immeasurable.
The relationship with the creativity differs by individual, and everyone, I mean everyone, holds the potential for creative expression. Creativity is an essential part of humanness, and the arts and humanities draw us deeply into those parts of ourselves where our most urgent questions, thoughts, and desires reside. Plumbing the depths of creative possibility is a kind of knowing reality, actually. That is of the essence of humanness, and that kind of knowing is our heritage. The creative arts are unique in human experience as a way of being, as integral to life as is breathing. And to that precise extent, the creative expression is among the most powerful, most compelling, and the most glorious manifestation of every individual and creative heritage.
So there is a basic creativity that we all have, but it manifests itself differently for each of us. And it's interesting because when I went back for my master's in creativity and innovation at Drexel University, there were no artists of any kind in any of my classes or in my degree program at all, which I'm an artist and I think a lot about creativity. It just seemed like a natural fit. But then my mentor, Dr. Frederica Reisman, said that I needed to be a bridge between music and creativity, between creativity and the arts. And honestly, at that time, it just didn't make sense to me. But then as I became more active in the field, I'd go to conferences And I talk to people and I realize that too often people think of artistic creativity as separate. They talk about creativity and innovation over here. And these are, business people, psychologists, educators, administrators, and they, respond to me and say, that's really great what you're doing, but way too often they didn't see a connection. I began to understand what it meant to be by needing a bridge between creativity and the arts. And I think it's so valuable to understand that the creativity is from the same source. It just manifests itself differently. But because it comes from that same source, it can be developed across disciplines. For a quick example, let's look at an interview I did with East Coast attorney Michael Menefes. He expressed one perspective of how this can work.
My creative process in writing is very similar to how we were trained as musicians since we were 5 or 10, whenever we started. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'll explain. What I do now, whether it's writing a book or it's solving a legal problem, is I take the issue, I break it down into all of its component parts. I research those parts. I figure out the background and the history of those parts. I then perfect each one of them. I make sure that we've really dug in, and then I put the whole thing back together so I can present it as a convincing whole. As a musician, this is what we've done since we started performing. We have a piece of music. It's not a problem, but it's a piece of music. We break it down into its component parts. We understand where it came from. We understand the history. We break it down into every 2 measures, that we perfect them so we can perform them. And then we put the whole thing back together and have to present it to somebody as an effective piece of music, as a performance.
So when Michael's episode was released, I really love what he said. He posted on Facebook. He shared the episode and he said, I think the subtitle for this discussion should be why all lawyers should study the arts. Of course, my ultimate goal is to replace that word lawyers with absolutely every kind of profession and have all fill in the blank should study the arts. And I think that creativity and the development of it through the arts can absolutely benefit everyone, no matter what their interests.
In my class, Developing the Creative Impulse, I've used a lot of different exercises designed to assist students in developing an awareness of how the creative process works as a function of their imagination. And many of these exercises have no correct answers, have no right answers, or specific patterns. And this enabled the students to experience a freedom in expressing themselves. And I want to take you through one of these exercises. Now, I want you to think inside of your mind as I take you through the following steps. Have fun. Think of a color, any color. Now think of an object with that color. Now place that colored object in some kind of a setting, some kind of a surrounding. Where in your imagination do you see that object? Next, I want you to add some sort of movement to that object. It may be small, it may be large. It may have one direction or even multiple directions. It may be perpetual or have points of rest. And the movement itself may come from inside the object. Obviously, I'm going through these steps more quickly than I would in the class. I would allow a little more space. But do it. Now, into your mind, place that entire moving colored object in a particular time period. Maybe in the past, maybe in the present, or maybe in the future. Or maybe something that comes from outside of your life. But see where your imagination takes you with that. If I were doing this in class, I would have the students write a few phrases that describe the image that was created in their imagination. And here are a couple of examples from the class that I taught here on campus at IU.
And then I'll say to them,
what you have now is the basis for writing a poem, drawing a picture, putting together a piece of music. So I get them to that point. They don't even know where they're going when I start this process, but it works out great.
Pick out a color. I chose lavender. We had to pick out something that was of that color, and I actually have a lavender plant in a lavender pot, so that's what came to my mind. And it was like fit in the place, and it actually sits to my bedroom windowsill. And then it said give movement to it, and I thought that was whenever I picture that lavender plant in its lavender pot on my windowsill, the only movement that ever comes to it is when I open up the window and like the breeze will like come through. Just give it a time, and I thought the time of day I chose was early morning, and then I currently live alone, and so like that's where like the present state of like living alone for like the first time, and so then we had to write some words about it. So I kind of try to do a little bit of prose, but these were my feelings, and a lot of it is about like living alone and about this lavender plant. And so I wrote, is this feeling loneliness? Have I matured? Or am I becoming humble? Is this how I'm gonna feel the rest of my life? I pondered this and more while watching the early morning breeze getting caught in the leaves of my lavender plant. Dancing, halting, rustling, pausing. The pattern of life continues on as I dwell on the little things. And so those were my early morning thoughts on my lavender plant and its lavender pot.
I picked an elephant, and I picked Times Square, New York, during rush hour. No, I think it was actually New Year's Eve, I think. So it'd be super crazy. There's no like rhyme or reason in the moment, and there really isn't in the end either. But in the moment, there definitely isn't. So you're just kind of like you have that free, the no boundaries thing, and then he tells you, no, with all that stuff that you just said, put it into one thing, and you get something random. So that's fun because I think that does help with creativity, like working on it, because you would never come up with that. And now that's part of my history, and now I have that in the back of my head. So now maybe down the road, that'll come back.
So a quick plug for his book. That's just one of 45 creativity exercises in it. And the whole book is a really great reference as well. And if you want to see the whole documentary of discovering the creative impulse, it follows a group of students through the entire semester, and that's available on my YouTube channel. So now, to get a little more specific about how we can develop creativity skills through music. When we learn music skills, we learn skills that parallel those of characteristics of creativity and ways that enhance our ability to express ourselves. One of those is performing, which is an obvious product of creativity, a way to express the music and to connect with an audience. Music can be either original or the recreation of someone else's imagination. And in this way, performing someone else's work is a collaboration combining their ideas and your interpretation. And if it's original, then we're talking about composition, another form of creative expression. This is something I do extensively with children, as Ruth mentioned earlier. And it's a great way for them to connect their experiences and interests with creative expression. So this is Kids Compose that Ruth and I co-founded 19 years ago. And it would be so easy to go down a rabbit hole of all the incredible exploration and expression over the years. But specifically relating to connecting with the individuals inside creativity. I have seen them compose by connecting their experiences, their interests and cultures, and using that as inspiration for musical expression. It might be animal sounds or science. And I'm going to give you a really quick example. I had a second grader who was a science enthusiast, and he was studying, I want to get this right, molecules. He drew a picture of sodium and hydrogen atoms coming together to make sodium hydroxide. And when we were composing, he pictured those first notes as the sodium and hydrogen atoms, and then he went from there and appropriately named his melody NaOH. Environment, incredible sounds for inspiration, also really great way to get tuned into the world around you. Storytelling. Maybe a student wants to express feelings or emotions that aren't connected to words, and music allows for that. Take the rhythm and inflection of a tongue twister or a poem. These are great ways to generate a basis for music composition. Visual art, obviously, you can explore textures and colors. And students enjoy trying to create particular atmospheres. So I want to give you a quick example of a group of students that were wanting to tap into environment for their catalyst, for their melody. So last October, I was working in a local elementary school in a classroom of second graders. And one of the compositions was inspired by creating this environment of an underwater environment, right? So the creative process started by imagining what was in the environment and how could music represent that. So first they came up with shapes that represent like the waves and various creatures. And then they chose notes that would musically represent the shapes that they had wanted to express. And then it was put into notation software. And there were 3 students working on this one, so they each picked 2 things, so a total of 6. And they started with the waves. And you'll notice the waves as they got closer to the shore, they got shorter. And next we have a kraken. And so that was really crunchy. So they had 2 notes like right next to each other. A shark, smoothly, I guess, swimming back and forth. And you can see the notes get closer and closer as it gets faster and faster. And they wanted the accelerando, but when they put into music notation, they wanted to make sure they dictated how it got faster. So they started with quarter notes, and then 1/8 notes, and then 16th notes. So they had a little bit more control over that. Oh, I love this next figure. So the young girl wanted to represent how when you step on the sand in the ocean, every time you step, your foot sinks. So this is her musically representing those footsteps. Now there were 2 more creatures inhabiting this piece. The first was a blue whale. And I really wish I had a recording of the student doing the whale impression because it was amazing. If you know, Finding Nemo was a little bit like Dory speaking whale. And then finally, we come to a squishy jellyfish whose sound fades away. Now, here you have, so that's the musical Ocean City, was their piece. But the exploration didn't stop there. I was able to put together a small ensemble of a combination of Jacob's musicians as well as community members. And they came in and the young composers got to explore their music and pick which instruments, played when and hear all the different sounds. And let me tell you, they never choose what you expect. Because if you look up here, that kraken with the 2 notes, you might think, okay, one of the instruments that regularly played 2 notes at the same time, or 2 instruments playing at the same time. And yes, they explore those options. But the big winner for that part was the French horn, playing 1 note and humming the other. So yeah, it's just like a gift, a magical gift as they open and explore the possibilities and choices. And honestly, it's as eye-opening for the musicians as it is for those kids. But here, I'm gonna play this real quickly. Oh. So that's how they chose to have their melody played.
So far, we've been focusing on what we are calling inside creativity. But now we'd like to shift a little bit. Still talking about cultivating creativity in ourselves, within ourselves, but focusing on connecting outwardly from the inside out. We've hinted at those connections beyond our own individuality, but let's dive deeper into the outside creativity and start by talking about the environment that is inducive to fostering creativity. When you're working with other people or yourself, care should be taken to avoid any characteristics that would be abrasive to setting the spirit of creativity free. And we should avoid these 3 C's: complacency, conformity, and comparison. Students must be engaged in process at whatever level their experience will allow. Complacency destroys this possibility. Conformity can become a controlling factor, limiting or even stifling the sense of creative freedom. And in the classroom or any creative space, studio should be void of the spirit of comparison, stated benchmarks, and other kinds of evaluative judgments. Its absence can result in a sense of freedom and relief felt by anyone involved in creative activity, and can enable them to increase the amount of vulnerability that each person will allow themselves. Individuals should not be stymied by allowing negative self-images to impact their creative thinking. Rather, curiosity and imagination should always be the constant focus.
Characteristics important to any environment, especially one that nurtures creativity, are a mystery. There we go. Reserving judgment. A person who feels judged is less likely to participate or share or even care about interacting. Not only does that person miss out on connecting, but everyone else involved has lost the opportunity to learn and grow from what that person would uniquely bring to the situation. And additionally, a person who has been squelched via judgment, whether it's intentional or not, is less likely to try even in the future to explore possibilities.
As important as reserving judgment, being open-minded and allowing yourself to encounter new ideas and understandings adds to your own palette of possibilities to make connections, not only in that particular collaborative situation, but in the future as well.
And as mentioned, vulnerability is necessary to try new things. If the environment doesn't provide a safe and supportive context where everyone can allow themselves to be vulnerable and feel appreciated and accepted, it will significantly reduce creative possibility. And even if all of that exists, you still have to trust and jump. Because if you don't try new things, then you're going to be limited to whatever you know and can do already. And that's self-stifling. So while there are elements that can encourage creativity, in the end, you have to be open to it and pursue expanding yourself. Those who are the most creative learn to take risks, to value complexity, and to view the surrounding world with possibility.
So back to our question of how music can contribute to creativity. How can music be an instrument of creative production? Well, none of these concepts that we've talked about are isolated. They overlap, and we have already discussed many of them, at least peripherally. But I want to reiterate the value, so here are a couple more C's. Music is a way of communication. It is often referred to as its own language. It's true, you can make music with others, even if you do not have a common spoken language. And this happens continuously around the entire world. Communication is vital in making music together. In a large ensemble, you may have a conductor to facilitate the performance of music as a group. With the chamber music, a small group, a quartet, a trio, a duet, it is simply imperative that you communicate with each other directly. You listen to each other, you breathe together, interpret the rhythm, contour the melody, dynamics, and the style together. And if you're playing jazz, well, listening takes on a whole nother level of meaning. You not only have to listen to play together, but especially with improvisation, you have to listen in order to respond to what the others do. Everyone's voice is important. And again, these skills developed through music apply across all life areas. Being actively involved in creative communication, you begin to understand how other people see reality, if you recognize it. And to be involved in the creative process enables individuals to experience the extent of each one's imaginative potential.
So understanding those other perspectives allows for collaboration. And in order to work and create together, whether it's the arts or business or sports or politics, you have to listen to celebrate each unique voice, appreciate diverse ideas, be open to possibilities and new experiences. Development through music increases creativity skills that can manifest themselves however, whenever, and wherever called upon. I want to quickly refer again to my work with the elementary students to give an example of collaboration. In our residency last October with the second graders, we began always by composing with an entire class, right? So group or class composition. So one class composed a melody by first creating a story. Since it was Halloween season, they made a spooky one, which is appropriate for today. The class started by setting the mood with swirling wind in a minor key, and it repeats until all of a sudden you see a gargoyle. Now, gargoyle is represented by 2 quarter notes in the rhythm of gargoyle. And because the gargoyle is a statue, it's followed by a rest, silence. Suspense is created by a really loud chord, and then all of a sudden the gargoyle comes to life, jumps off his perch on top of the building and dives, landing in a swimming pool. Didn't see that coming, did you? There was a discussion about the fact that the gargoyle is made of stone and so it sank to the bottom, and a really great debate about whether this gargoyle was going to get out. But ultimately the kids decided that it would flap its arms, wave its arms, which would allow it to swim through the water, fly through the air, and then arrive back up on its perch, where it would ultimately freeze again and end the piece with gargoyle. So here is a second grade student class composition just played on harp. Now, what's really neat about this is that because we had that chamber ensemble there, we were able to take one more step, and we took that melody and gave it to, and for each class actually, to a Jacob School Music composition student. And this one went to doctoral student Isaac Smith, who composed a piece using it as a basis for our ensemble. And I'm not sure that we have time. Let me just start it because it's awesome.
Can everybody who's in Mrs. Reynolds' class raise their hand? You guys composed such a wonderful melody. I thought it was really cool, I thought it was really spooky, and I thought it was perfect for Halloween. So, what I decided to do with my composition is I decided to tell the story of a spooky gargoyle having a pool party on a Halloween night. So it starts with a flute who kind of sets the spooky mood, and I'm sure you'll hear that. And then I want you to listen very carefully, because I think you're going to hear the gargoyle jump off this perch and dive into the pool. And then he kind of has a spooky polka pool party, and then after the pool party is done, he slowly flies back up to his perch and waits there for Halloween night. All right, and with that spooky story, I'd like you to hear Singing Gargoyle on a Halloween night. Here it is.
I'll just start it. I wish you could hear the whole 5-minute piece because it's fantastic. I did. It's a fantastic piece and the kids loved it. Yeah, I know. I want to play the whole thing for you. But all right, obviously the experiences are collaborative, but they also build community. And when we share experiences, we connect with each other. And if you think back to that Steve Jobs quote, he talked about people being, I didn't there. He talked about people being able to connect their experiences and synthesize new things. Creativity is about connecting things, maybe that weren't previously connected, in interesting or new ways. And just like the kids using their experiences to compose music, that works for composing literature or visual art. Connections allow us to draw more meaning from any learning opportunity or experiences throughout life. And if we make connections to the material, it becomes relevant. If we connect with history or science or each other, we can understand on a different level. And connecting unexpected and seemingly unrelated things can allow you to create new products, new stories, and new possibilities.
We have the promise of expanding a deeper understanding of ourselves and others through such activities, and the opportunity to experience positive relationships both within and beyond cultures. All of this is possible through being involved in the creative process. Creativity from the inside out. We thank you for inviting us to be with you today. We've enjoyed the being with you, and sorry we couldn't get the whole semester class in 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie and Harold. They're going to stay around afterwards for questions. We knew it was going to be a long program. They distilled it from a 55-minute presentation down to 30 minutes. So thank you for the distillation process. We understand your creativity in doing that. Also, you'll notice thank you cards on the table. These are from students that sent thank yous for Teacher Warehouse donations. I'd also like to mention that we have a subcommittee that I've appointed to help with the strategic plan. We're going to meet on November 7th from 4:30 to 6:30, looking at the past plan. And Michael Shermas, the guru of planning, is going to work with us on this. But if you have any ideas to help in the planning process for our organization, please share your thoughts with Michael or me, and we will share them with the committee that's working on this. I'd also like us to keep Judy Schroeder in our thoughts and prayers. She's going to have knee surgery on November 13th, and this is her probably last meeting with us until possibly the first of the year. So keep her in your thoughts and prayers as she moves forward. I'd like to also thank people that made this meeting possible today. Greer Carson for our greeter, Hank Walder for our introductions, Sally Gasco for our Zoom host, Tim Jessen for his reflection, Bill Perkins as a reporter, Tracy Yanovich for her camera mic that we didn't need today, but she enjoyed her dessert better that way. And obviously for Tyler Martin Nichols for handling all the technology. Our next meeting will be in the Frangipani room, November 14th. The real meeting that we hope you come to is the Future Cast. And by the way, that will be at the Convention Center. And that'll be this be on the 9th of November. So please join us for that meeting if you can. The sign-up sheets are still available. The sign-up is online. Natalie put a post out for that. So this is always a wonderful event, and I encourage you to go. Now, if Tyler, you'll put up the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it truth? Second, third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? It'll be beneficial to all concerned. And fifth, is it fun?